So that should now go live. And James is waiting to get in.
Oh, James is. Okay.
What's that? I said you didn't have a Dave Chappelle. You said a lot.
There it is. Okay, so that should be it for them.
Why is it going with your?
I don't know. Oh, if you're funny, you're automatically motion.
I wonder if it's because it's trying. I don't know.
You can lock me out or use it. I don't care. Damn, it really doesn't matter. But
That's
you're,
what we want to do right there.
yeah, you're admin on it, and I'm
Right.
not. So maybe
So
that's
it's actually
why.
running it through mine, but you're viewing it, so you can actually watch the.
Okay. It's hot. Okay. Okay. I don't.
That's why I was having a problem with the.
Oh, okay, yeah, and I did because I wasn't gonna let anybody in. But, yeah. Because we have to.
Comments, so if you want to bring comments. Hey, James, how are you doing?
Good evening, all.
Hi, James.
Give me a pin.
Still my pen.
No, no, no.
Feet apart and 35 square feet per person. Even indoors.
That's what we've been going, I mean, there's some ordinances that say yes, and there's some that say masks required for everybody, for every social gathering.
And there's some that say if you're social distancing, you know, so I don't,
And no matter what we do, somebody complains.
and we can't physically go around and put masks on people.
We cannot, yeah. I've provided a mask for everybody.
Yes.
But hey, Haley.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's,
Hi, Haley.
you can, you can check on here. There's payroll check on here. You sure?
Oh, yeah. They had 2 bonds. Oh. One 18 screw, 500.
So once a year, we're required to do this.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have a salary. I'm talking about like
Fiscal year, but, if you don't want to go to shelter, then like, you board that I had to do whatever agencies, then they're responsible for shelter.
they do, they prefer these, but we run it just accounts table, not people's table.
You can pull it back if you want to.
No, no, I'm saying 28.
Should be, should be rated.
Yeah, we got-
I didn't want to see how much mine was.
Yeah, that was never right. I already memorized. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, oh, I usually do Jolene, and she's in here. Yeah, you need one?
I can see them.
Oh, yeah, no, I do, I always hand them to Jolene, so I don't know where they're going. Because I don't go in the yeah, squad room to, yeah.
Okay, folks, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to call did somebody want to say something first? I'd like to call the City Council Chambers, City Council meeting for the City of Coquille to order at 7:01 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mayor's comments. I just want to let everyone know that the Coquille Chamber of Commerce has moved to their location. We are all set up and running except for our telephone. We had a little problem with Spectrum, and so they won't be out until next week to connect the phone. But everything stays the same as before, the same phone number, same email, everything's the same, except for the address is now 55 East First Street. So please stop in and see our new location and take a look and see what we've done. Moving on to council comments. Let's start with Councilor Chappelle.
Can you hear me, Kathy?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me okay?
First of all, I would like to thank everybody, all the people in the town that came to the Canada's Forum, where I was the moderator for. I want to thank everybody for coming. I forgot to actually give a shout out to Suzanne Swan, who actually put the whole thing on. She wasn't actually present, but I would like to thank her for putting this on, and also David Jennings for being the timekeeper. I think everybody did a good job, and all I can say is go out and vote. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Niswonger,
No comments.
Councilor Pinkston,
The Friends of the Library and the Library Board are dedicated to the building of a new library at the McKay's site. We understand there was some concern regarding the last candidates forum regarding the use of that building. And let me tell you that we have dedicated ourselves to the building of that library at that site and have put some monies into it over the years. And that still is our objective.
thank you, Councilor Rao.
I just want to echo Councilor Chappelle. Boy, I'm really getting in there on this thing. I just want to echo Councilor Chappelle's thanks to the folks who put on the forums. You know, it was great to see people come out and participate on social media. And a big thank you to all the people who helped put that together and volunteered for the two of them, including Councilor Chappelle, who moderated the Councilors Forum on Friday. I also want to wish everybody a safe and happy Halloween, and I hope they get to enjoy it with their families as best they can, given the COVID-19 circumstances. And go out there and vote, like Chappelle said. It's your city, it's your democracy. Tell us how you want it to go. That's it.
Thank you. Councilor Wyaba.
Yeah, I'd like to say big thanks for all the street sweeping that's been going on with the street sweeper. It's been nice to see the streets getting cleaned up from our city. Also, all the accommodations we have with the online access for our Zoom to help us stay safe through this bit of crisis that we're undergoing with COVID-19. It's really exciting to see us advancing the way we can do to accommodate people's health and safety. That's all.
Thank you. Counselor Parker? Counselor Parker,
No comment?
can you hear me, Counselor?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Moving on to staff reports, Chief Sanders?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, my report, the only thing extra I have to talk about a little bit is late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, Officer Makinson helped North Bend, Coos Bay Police Department, State Police on a pursuit. Ended up in Bandon. Officer Makinson actually spike stripped that pursuit at 42-101 Junction. It made it to Bandon, where it sort of ditched the other vehicles, and then Officer Makinson ended up pursuing that vehicle here to Coquille on 42 South. It pulled off, or swerved off, basically off the highway at Highway Deli Mart. The operator bailed out of the vehicle, let it crash into the wall there, and tried to barricade himself into the deli mart. That didn't work for him. He ends up trying to barricade himself into the community building where he broke in. He ended up in the attic. Sergeant Miller came in. Between the two of them, they got in the attic and got that guy out of there safely. So big kudos to Officer Makinson and Sergeant Miller. You haven't heard about that story. I can answer any questions if you have.
I have a question, Chief Sanders. Could you tell me about the ODOT traffic grant, like what it's about, who writes it? You know, I see that you guys receive checks for it and you're having one coming up with this speed and seatbelt enforcement. Can you expand more on this?
Sure. Every year we get to apply. There for a while, sort of before my time and the officer's time, the city was doing it, or the police department was doing it, then they didn't do them like they were supposed to. So there was a couple of years we didn't get to apply, but now we're back in good standings with them. This past year we did seatbelt and speed enforcement, and it's something that ODOT pays for. They pay for the time that the officers spend doing that. And that's why the checks are coming in now for that. It's just grant money that they give us. So it gives us a little bit of extra time to come out on days off or weekends, holidays, and work some traffic for ODOT. And, you know, you probably all heard it. Why is Coquille officers out on the highway working traffic when there's a city? Vice versa. Whether it was a grant or not, I would rather see them slow the traffic down out on the highway before it gets to Coquille. But most of the time they're out there working grant. So that's just part of what we do, and ODOT pays for it. So it's great. And you know, we just did that, and Officer Makinson usually does most of the paperwork on it. Jolene also helps by keeping track of all the hours worked. Gets that money or that time sent back into ODOT and the staff. So, and then everyone else helps out as they can. So we all work together on it. But Officer Makinson is the one that is sort of the one that puts in for that grant for us and shit.
Thank you, Chief Sanders. That's wonderful news. Big applause for everybody that participates in receiving, you know, this grant money for our department. It's, I'm sure, put to well use.
Thank you.
Chief,
Oh, I'm sorry.
when you are pursuing a perpetrator, whatever, what is the procedure regarding the standard for COVID when you're trying to take down somebody? Basically, are they putting themselves at risk out there when they're taking anyone, bringing anybody into custody?
I suppose so. I suppose, you know, with COVID, every contact we make, we're putting ourselves at some kind of risk. But unfortunately, we always weigh the risk. You know, there's risk involved with pursuing a vehicle. Early Sunday morning, not much risk. The vehicle had been spiked twice, so by the time Officer Makinson took over the pursuit, this the top speed that guy got was like 50 miles an hour. He had two front tires that were flat and he was on the rim and the rims were even giving out on him. So it was a slow pursuit at, I don't know, 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning. Didn't put anyone at risk. So we always weigh the risk. And with COVID, you know, there's obviously going to be a risk there also. You know, when you have to take someone into custody, you don't know where they've been, and most of them don't really care where they've been. You know, so we take precautions as always, but there's always going to be a risk. Yes, sir.
I just wonder if there's any standard procedure, but apparently you just, it's spur of the moment. They make this decision.
At the moment, and we're sort of off normal as far as what we're doing. You know, obviously our office and window is closed, but we're still, people need to see us. We're meeting them in the parking lot, so it's outside. We get complaints, you know, once in a while someone complains, oh, I seen an officer and he was out on a traffic stop and he wasn't wearing a mask. Well, it is state recognized that officers do not have to wear a mask. So we just sort of try to tell everyone now, but obviously if we go into someone's, we're trying to stay out of people's homes. If we're assistant medical, we try to stay outside if we can, but if we do have to go in someone's home or a business or something, we're courteous and try to wear a mask if there's an option before we do.
Chief Sanders, I have a question, please. I've had a couple of inquiries about the parking on Main Street there by D&J Auto. What's the story on that? They seem to be parking on the street again.
They did, we had to take care of that last week on Main Street. Sergeant Miller went over and they had an employee who had parked a big black Ford pickup or something there. He took care of that. And they had told him not to park there, but he had to anyways. And then I've talked to Haley and city manager about them parking on the outside of the fence now on the grass. What would be ODOT's grass corner there. And so I've talked to them the last couple of weeks about that. So I don't know where we're at with that exactly, but we're trying to figure out, can they park outside the fence? The whole idea of putting the fence up was so they would keep everything inside the fence. Now they're parking vehicles out on the grass on the outside of the fence. So their parking issues have been a problem probably well before I started here 4.5 years ago, and we're still going with it. I just don't know what the answer is. Somehow or another, it's really not to crack down on them.
Well, the businesses around there are complaining because they're taking up customer parking with their vehicles that they're not, that they're not working on. So they park them out on the street, and therefore Hoosits and Safeway don't have customer parking. So they weren't,
correct.
yeah, they weren't too happy about that.
Right, we've been back there numerous times and tagged them, and they're great about coming and moving them, but then they put them right back the next couple of days.
Right, they just move them around.
I think it was something that, I don't know if it was something that they've always been allowed to do, and so they feel like they have, they feel like they should be continued allowed to do that. I'm not sure, but it is an issue. We're aware of it. I just don't know exactly what the answer is, other than just red tagging their vehicles nonstop and making them move them.
Well, I think no parking means no parking. If I parked there, you wouldn't hesitate to give a ticket.
Right, and we have given them tickets. We have.
Right.
They don't seem to. And
Okay,
they're also parking down at the McKay's lot on the GP lot. So all of those vehicles you see down there on the property of McKay's owns, that's all their vehicles too.
Right, which makes me have some concern because they're using it as a junkyard since they opened up their towing service. And, we have that property up for sale, and it doesn't make a very good appearance when people come to look at the property and they see this junkyard out there.
Right, I don't suppose we have any jurisdiction over it because it's
Right.
property, but it doesn't look good.
Could we ask McKay's could we send them an abatement letter to clean that lot up?
So McKay's the store, the organization actually does not own that lot. It's owned by Tamara, the daughter of Chuck McKay.
The wife's daughter.
Yeah. And so I've talked to her a couple times. I do have a phone number I can call and talk to her again this week. And just say, hey, can we do anything about the junk cars that are piling up on your property?
I think that would be
I'm
nice.
sorry, Kathy.
Oh, I was just, saying if I was a interested investor and I went out there and thought maybe that perhaps that's a junkyard, I might not consider the property that's up for sale, was my only comment.
I was gonna say, and Haley could undoubtedly answer this better than me, but that lot is zoned residential or commercial industrial. And anybody could put on that property, that kind of a storage facility for vehicles. It falls, I would think, under the industrial side of it.
But what about vehicles who aren't registered with insurance?
No, that's all a
Against
very
the
good question.
ordinance.
No, that's a very good question. I don't know if that'd be.
Because that's an
James' question,
abatement,
or
yeah.
Haley.
That's an abatement violation if they're not registered and they're just, so.
Well, like I said, I'm not saying they can't use it. I would just like them to either neatly organize it or, where it's not such an eyesore was all. That's all I have to say.
I guess my concern is we visibly have no parking either side of the street. And I go home and I come to my office and I go home several times during the day. And there is a minimum of 3 cars blocking the entrance to Safeways. That's a safety hazard. And I don't understand why we're not addressing it. I looked at your report in Makeson, there was a combination of 4 violations for parking, and there's a minimum of 4 a day out there. I don't understand why we're not addressing it.
Can we tow those vehicles after they've been cited so many times? James, would that be a question for you or the police chief?
Chief knows.
As long as if we're citing and they're paying the fines, then eventually, yes. If they don't move them, yes, they can be towed. But just because we've issued numerous citations, and it's not the same vehicle every day. It's different vehicles. We get one moved and then park a different one. And we have cited them. It's just something
that is not the case. There's a truck that's been out there for 4 or 5 days straight in a row.
That black truck with the flatbed? Yeah, it's out there every evening.
Yeah, I mean, they park there every evening. Every morning I come down the hill, every evening they're there. And if we're not doing anything about it, then why will anybody else park where they're supposed to park in town?
Okay, we'll work on it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on for the library report, Director Connor. Director Connor, are you there?
Yeah, I just unmuted myself.
Okay.
So I have my written report. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. I would like to mention something, add to my report, since the city council discussion was online, which I found very interesting. And what apparently people don't understand is we have had 2 very thorough studies done by architects, engineers. Robertson Sherwood did a study for us when we had no property, just imaginary new property, renovation property, and what it would cost and what we could do. They looked at all the possibilities of expanding where we are now, which was not possible because they said we need 11,000 square feet. And that won't happen where we are now. After that, we got a place. We bought the McKay's building. We invested in the McKay's building, and we hired new architects and engineers, and they looked at that specifically for our new library. And we have the plans and the floor plans, the details for putting our library up there. And we put a lot of money into it. This is just not a shot in the dark, but it's all figured out, it's all planned, and it's all paid for. We just have to get the money to do it.
And may I make a comment? Anyone who questions that, we have plans, right? So we could, if they want to look over the plans, that's open to them to come
You
look
bet.
at them at any time, right?
Yep, we have final plans that can be checked out of the library, and we have the preliminary plans in my office, and I'd be happy to show it to you. We have floor plans. We have it all done. And I'd be happy to show anybody that doesn't know that we have done all that work already. I'll be happy to show you all the work that's been done.
And I just want to say congratulations on your new upcoming location for the Friends of the Library for their new bookstore.
Thank you. Yep, the Friends of the Library will be downtown, and that's what we need, is a bookstore downtown.
Yes, we do desperately need a bookstore.
In response to that, we're looking for a carpenter. We've got 70 shelves put in that store down there, over 10,000 books.
Okay, we'll try to find you a carpenter.
And help moving all that stuff down there. We need somebody with a truck, somebody else with a truck, and somebody else with a truck, and lots of labor to help us move our store from the Jefferson School to downtown. It will be the pride of Coquille. Well, until the library is built, then that will be the pride of Coquille.
Thank you. Any other questions for Director Connor? Okay, moving
Yeah,
on.
Director, could I
I'm
ask a
sorry.
question?
Yeah.
I looked at your number 3 here with the implementing this plastic over the pickup window. Could you tell me about that? I was trying to make sense of it, and I wasn't
Well,
getting.
if you've ever been to the grocery outlet, I think, when you walk in and one side is refrigerated materials, there's fresh
Oh,
vegetables.
yeah, they have those strips.
They have those strips of plastic separating it from the main store. And that's all we did. We put a couple strips of heavy plastic over the window so that all of our heat won't be going outside, but we'll still be able to exchange materials with our patrons.
Oh, okay.
That makes
Wonderful.
sense. Have you seen that in the?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
outlet.
Now I'm seeing.
I
what
think,
now I'm
okay.
seeing it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Director Connor? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to Chief Farron.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The only thing I have to add to my report is in there I talked about doing a Halloween event at the fire department. I forgot to mention what time that was. It's going to be from 5 to 8 p.m. on Halloween. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Could you tell me, Chief Farron, about the Rosenbauer America when they stopped by?
Yeah, so they stopped by a couple weeks ago, just kind of showing the quality of their trucks. Give me just a second. One of the things I noticed whenever their truck was there was the height of it. It is a type 1/3, so it does sit a little bit higher, but one of the big things that I've been telling the council and the mayor is that's part of the reason we need a new fire station, is because when we go to buy a new truck, there is a good chance that it's not going to fit the station. So I took a couple of pictures. If anybody's interested, I'd be happy to show those at some point, just to kind of show where the truck sits compared to the doors to the bays of the fire department.
Chief Farron, is this an actual tender or is this more like your RAV1 unit?
So the truck that they brought down, it's more like one of our first out engines. It's gonna be, it's a little bit smaller than a tender. It carries less water. The one that they brought down, I believe, was a 500-gallon tank, but it's used for major firefighting, such as structure fires, that sort of thing. Where our tender is 2,000 gallons to 3,000 gallons.
Okay, and that also goes along with this research you've been doing for this 2,000-gallon tender. This is through a different company, I assume?
Correct. So the Rosenbauer wasn't really necessarily the company that I would want to go with. They do rear mount pumps, that sort of thing. So the 2,000 gallon tender is something that I've kind of been working on. I've been looking at the AFG grants this year. It looks like everything's leaning towards COVID related. So the chances of getting an AFG grant this year, I'm not 100% sure yet, but it's not looking like they're going to be doing any apparatus purchases. So, but I still continue with my research, trying to find the right truck for our department. Mainly, all of our trucks right now are front mount pumps, and I would like to continue with front mount pumps, and there's only a couple of companies that still manufacture it.
Do you have any more ideas for Hoops to kind of get this funding of $350,000 for this 2,000 gallon tender besides the AMG grant?
Not at this time. There's a few contacts that I still need to contact and sit down with them about possible funding opportunities.
And you were saying with the Rosenbauer America engine that it's sat higher. So if you went with this 2,000 gallon tender, is it most likely not going to fit under those bay doors without some modification to the doors?
It's going to be challenging. It may cost more to build the truck to get the height down. I'm going to try and set it up to where they can make it lower, but I mean, that truck was a good foot to a foot and a half taller than the door at the peak point, which was the smokestack on it. So, but even if you move the smokestack on it, it was still too tall to fit under the doors.
So, and if we're in dire need of this 2,000 gallon tender and we don't have, a new building, do you think a new door can be put into your current facility?
No, I do not. The construction of the building is not really set up to raise the roof in that section. It would be possible, but it would take a whole overhaul of the building itself.
So basically going for the tender is kind of almost out of the question without that building to accommodate it.
Yes and no. I do have a couple other stations where I can store it until we get a new station, but it definitely is a necessity at this point. I mean, we've done a lot of work to our other two tenders that we have right now. One's in 1978, the other's in 1984. They're quite old. One actually used to be a cement truck before it was a fire truck, so it's definitely getting time to replace at least one of them.
Well, do they still have all the things that plug into them correctly with the current standards, don't they?
What do you mean plug into it correctly?
Well, with technology, technology outdates itself, but does this
Right.
happen the same way with your fire engines?
So mainly it's more mechanical. Some of the reasons we are looking at new tenders is because we've had to patch holes in the tanks because they're rusting out. We've had to replace a bunch of valves in the pump itself, and because of the rust issues, and also because of the pump issues causing leaking and whatnot. So we've done a lot of overhaul on them, trying to keep them up and running to NFPA standards, but becoming more and more challenging, and it's costing more and more money each time we're fixing it.
Right. Well, thank you for all your insight on this, Chief Farron. That's kind of alarming to have all this information prevalent, but I don't know, hopefully the city will work together and we'll figure out something for this going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, counselors, and thank you, Chief Farron. At this time, Sam, I'd like you to introduce our new Community Development Department Director before we ask her to give her report, please.
Okay. So our Support Services Director, Community Development is actually Haley. Haley's on there, so I'm going to let
I'm
Haley
sorry.
go.
I got the wrong one. Okay. Go ahead,
Haley
Haley.
dropped off. Where'd you go?
So what is Cher's new title?
Support services.
Okay, got you. Thank you. Sorry about that. Haley? Haley, are you there?
We can't hear her.
Hi,
Oh, hi, Haley. Do you want to give your report?
sure. I don't have anything to add other than what's in the written report, so if you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Haley?
I have a question, if you
Just
don't
a
mind.
comment. Andy, up. Go
Is that
ahead.
Go
good?
Andy.
ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, thank you. So I have a question on the Jefferson School. As a real estate broker amongst you, the term selective demolition makes me nervous, particularly when we have lots of asbestos and lead and all kinds of things. So specifically, what are we addressing here, and how selectively and how much demolition are we going to do?
So they sent us a written plan. I sent it to Steve Major. He gave it the A-OK. We then sent a question back to the demolishers, asking them about one specific piece, which is a hole in the roof, asking them, making sure that they would patch it in the event that they didn't move forward with the transfer of the property. So I'm confident that the plan that they have is, in the worst case scenario, that they don't move forward transferring the property, that they're going to patch the major holes that they make. So there's a hole in the roof, and then there's 3 other holes in concrete slabs that Steve Major was worried about.
What were those concerns, Haley? That Steve Majors was worried
So
about?
they're not concerns. They're things that we want to make sure get patched if they don't buy the building. So there are 3 or 4 holes that are like this big into concrete slabs, and then there's a hole into the roof. They're not, I'm making it sound scarier than it is. They're not really big holes. They're trying to figure out what beams and things are made of. And they sent us a very detailed proposal that I sent along to our engineer that the engineer didn't have a problem with.
That was my next question, is what exactly are they looking for? The structure to see how secure it is, or the foundation, or?
You know, I really don't know exactly. I think it's all of the above. They're looking for asbestos. They're looking to see what certain support systems are made of, whether things have deteriorated over time.
So Haley, I actually walked through with them when they were talking about it. Some of the things they were looking at is how many rebar per square foot was used in the cement on the base and the foundation. What kind of wood was actually used up in the trusses and the span across the roof. And then of course, you know, they knocked some stuff out to see what kind of level of asbestos was in there. And that's what they're looking at is what is that structure actually made of? Do we have to reinforce any of these the cement columns, depending on what the rebar per square foot is and all of that calculation?
Sam, do we have a written contract with them at this point? We have a written agreement that we'd run past Mr. Martin so that we really do have some recourse should they change their mind?
I do not believe we do. It was just as part of their due diligence, and then we went back with them and said, hey, if you make these holes, you need to patch them if you're not following through.
Yeah, well, I think Oregon law says verbals don't count. You have to have everything in writing. And I would be way more comfortable if we had some sort of written agreement with them and Mr. Martin approved that agreement rather than Steve Major.
It was more of email exchanges with them guaranteeing that they would do that, I believe. Is that right, Haley?
Yeah, I have it in a document.
But you have a written
There's specific.
agreement. Okay, so my question is, do we have a written agreement that our attorney has approved?
She's
This
not.
is James. I have not approved anything separately from their original response to the request for proposals, which was accepted and approved by the council, which led to a due diligence period. I have not reviewed or seen any specific agreements or communications about work being done as part of that due diligence.
Would you be comfortable with what we're hearing here?
Yes, frankly, because it's NeighborWorks Umpqua and because of their reputation and standing on projects of this nature, I'm not terribly concerned. And this sort of investigation, I would say, is fairly common and pretty standard for a redevelopment project of an older building like this.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions for Haley?
Haley,
Yeah, Haley, I have a question on
Sheldon. I
your,
couldn't think of your last name. I was gonna say Director Sheldon.
Director Sheldon, I have a question on your guys' public surplus and old equipment. How much are you guys cleaning up of your guys' yard? Do you think it's gonna be enough to fund this new street sweeper?
oh, I don't know yet. We just went to try to post the first piece of equipment on there today, actually, which is an old 1971 case crawler. And I accidentally registered as a seller or a buyer instead of a seller is the short story. So we haven't gotten to the point where we're really figuring out how much our equipment's going to go for.
Now, do we still have that contract with the neighboring city or service that has their street sweeper coming in through our city?
No, we have a contract with a private person who does a route through the city that has 5 different variations once a week. And it is, in my opinion, too expensive. So our street sweeper is like a really bad vacuum cleaner. So it doesn't really do what the street sweeper is intended to do. So it is good having that contractor, but ideally we'd have a street sweeper that would do it all. I have been trying to set up a time to talk with the county roadmaster and one other guy at the county to try to figure out ways that we can partner with them in the future. I don't know if that involves street sweeping, but it'll involve some stuff having to do with the streets. And they were busy, and so they told me they'd meet with me in September, and now we've moved on to now November.
Right.
But they're sort of 3 separate pots, really. Like,
Yeah, and then that's what I was wondering is if we lessen that contract or if we needed that contract still, if that could help get to the new street sweeper for in-house.
it absolutely would. We're paying
realistic is that to
$700. We're spending $700 a month on street sweeping. So we could definitely spend that money towards a street sweeper, and that is in our immediate future.
Okay, great.
Not just involving the sale of that equipment, but then also just using some of our budget money to probably do that because it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And the last question I have was going into our soon winter coming months, and with that recent or last year's turbidity issue with our water, how ready is our pumps and systems going into the rainy season?
As ready as they can be.
I see a lot of talk
We're
on here that
looking
we're
to
doing
the future.
maintenance. We're seeing
We
maintenance
have,
on these pumps.
Well, it's not exactly routine maintenance. We had a pump that failed. So we have a motor that's off right now getting repaired and a pump that is getting repaired of our 2 river pumps. However, it's customary for the last few years for us to be running on 1 pump, which is unfortunate, but has been sort of the fact in Coquille. So we've got our pump station right now that we're doing the best that we can with to maintain and keep up as fast as we can. And then we also have our looking forward to the future, which is this big grant that we're going towards to move it onto land. So you're not really looking at anything different than you have been for the last few years, but it is not in an ideal situation.
Right, and if we got back, if we have a repeat of that turbidity issue with a COVID crisis, what's our emergency water supply system for Coquille?
If you had a turbidity issue, it would be with Rink Creek Reservoir, and you'd go back onto the river pump.
Okay.
And
Thank
you'd
you.
be filtering water. Yeah. Mhm.
Haley, may I just ask one real quick question? We had talked a few months back about changing the striping on the First Street and changing the angle. And earlier, was it this month, Kathy? Or
Brought it up, I think,
somebody
a couple
decided
months.
to drive through the Fraser's parking, the Fraser's plate glass window. So I was wondering where we were on that, if we were still looking to do that or not.
Well, the council approved to do it. And the last I heard, that Dyer was supposed to redraw the lines. But that has kind of dropped in the wayside.
Yeah, I was just curious where we.
I'm
Haley?
terribly sorry. Can you hear me? I lost the audio on the very beginning of your question. So are we talking about the stripes on First Street? Is that what I gathered?
Yes, on the parking.
You know, I had heard when I first started that the council had been looking at a way to restripe to add more spaces onto First Street. Is that right?
Yes, Dyer Engineering was supposed to draw a new plan because council did approve that work to be done.
Well,
actually, what I believe the council approved was to go out to Dyer and have them put a bid in to put it together. I did not believe that the.
Yes, that
actual
would be
work was-
correct, Sam. You're absolutely right, but
Yeah.
yeah.
The work itself had not been approved to be done. But, and yes, we talked about this last month, and unfortunately, I don't think we've made any progress on approaching Dyer with that. We've had some other things like a river pump that went out that have taken precedence over that.
I can look into that, but the unless it involves adding space to the street, I mean, literally widening the street and moving the sidewalks, you're not going to get another. You could get a couple more spaces. There's equations in planning that show how many spaces you can
Haley,
get.
I'm sorry, but it wasn't to add parking spaces. It was to change the angle. So we didn't have so many people backing into the cars that were parked along the opposite curb. That if we change the angle of the parking, the cars backing out of the parking spaces would back up more directly into First Street instead of going straight across the street.
I see what you're saying. Let me ask Steve about that. I'm sure that he's heard about it.
Yeah, we're not trying to make more parking, and we might even lose a parking space or two. But the whole idea was to prevent some of these accidents, because on a daily basis, we have people backing into other vehicles that are parked on the opposite side of the street.
Okay.
And the chief could clarify that for you.
Okay.
Does anybody else have anything for Director Shelton? Okay, hearing none. Now we'll move on to Sam. If you would introduce the new person to our staff for the support services position.
All right, so after a long, hard search, trying to find an individual that would work well with our staff and give us the knowledge base that we're looking for, we came across Sherilyn Harvey. Sherilyn, I actually met Sherilyn a couple years ago when she was the administrative assistant. I don't know, what were you with the port? Down at the Port of
Port Orford.
Office manager for the Port of Port Orford. And special projects finance for Curry County. So I got to know her a couple years ago, and then she popped back up on the radar 2 months ago, and so it's good to see her, and I'm glad she applied actually. Sherilyn, would you like to kind of introduce yourself, kind of what you're up to?
Hi, it's nice to meet everyone. If you're interested, I'm actually working on it right now, but I have a LinkedIn profile, and then of course I always tell everybody about Facebook.
I'm sorry, I can't hear her.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
I just was inviting anyone that was interested that I'm on LinkedIn if they were interested in why I was selected for this position. And then I've been in Oregon for 13 years, but in Curry County. And then I have done special projects and budgeting and finance for local governments. I have a little small business of my own that I do budgeting and bookkeeping for special districts, and office manager for port for three years for the Port of Porter for the special project for Curry County. And then I have 15 years with social services in California doing their budgeting, quality control, administrative review. My graduate degree is public administration with a postgraduate certification in project management. And my bachelor's is for human resource management. So I think that combination is why that he selected me, because it kind of goes across the board of support services. And then was there any questions? I would just go to my report. And I will go to it. Okay, so in the first few weeks that I've been here, I've just been trying to collect information from the 2 CPAs and reviewing where they led off those teams, so that I know where to move forward from and wrapping up that 18-19 audit. I think we're getting close to the information for the auditor to have that, so that we can get started on the 19-20. One of our biggest challenges, of course, is picking up where the CPA firm left off. They had several staff members that were working on cleaning up the financials and reconciling that information. And so now we're going to be doing it internally. That does take a lot of time. I wanted to let you know, for example, the way that the payroll is being done right now is taking 32 to 35 hours a month just for the data entry, when it should take less than 10. Probably to get all that in there and get it up and running. And then we're also doing a cleanup on it. And then the bank reconciliations will be what I'll be looking at when the payroll is brought current. I need to get the September in there so that I can get the department heads their current financial budgets. I'm going to be getting those out to them by the end of the week. And then my goal for this period is to look at where the city's situation is and find the most cost-effective approach to cleaning that up and migrating to a more current software, so that we have the tools available to manage the finances. Oh, I didn't, I just printed them out. I didn't make the packet, so I think where you're sitting, you would have found, why doesn't this speak on? There was a copy of the current revenue versus expenses, and the other page that was taken back was the bank register. It was my understanding that this council prefers to have a copy of the previous month's bank register. So that's why I had the check register.
For those that I emailed that to, that we're not going to attend in person, if you could actually delete that check register, it has a couple of personal information things on it. So we need you to not use those, unfortunately.
All I want to say is it's nice after 4 years of being mayor to finally get a financial. Thank you for doing it.
I'll be giving you budget versus actuals and also quarterly reports at each increment. I just have to be able to have a little bit of time in my office to be able to provide those for you, but they will be regular statements for you.
Okay, I appreciate all your hard welcome. Welcome to Coquille.
Thank you.
Anyone have any other questions? If not, I'll move on to Sam Baugh's report. Mr. Baugh?
All right. So I did put together a report for you. I just wanted to clarify, I did talk to Randy Hoffline with Pacific Properties, and he gave me a confirmation number for the Oregon Real Estate Agency, where they have applied for that that office in Coquille to actually be registered with the state. But he sent me a confirmation email just to make sure that all that was in compliance with what we had talked about last month.
Could you give us that number, please?
What's that confirmation number?
Yes, please.
ORREAB 0001 70233. And he had forwarded me to me just the whole email from the state showing they had registered. But it's going to be a few more days before it pops up on the site.
Right. Was that B as in boy?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. 00170023.
001 70233.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Ball?
I do have a couple of other items to talk about.
Okay.
I sent out an email on Friday. It was too late to get it into the packet. With the League of Oregon Cities conference that was last week, there was a lot of cities that were talking about how they were leveraging the Corona relief funds that they had been allocated for their city. Currently, we have used about $20,000 that we've actually put in for reimbursement, and we have another about $20,000 that we are looking at putting in the future. Our city was actually designated, they had set aside about $115,000 total for reimbursement funds. What some of the other cities have been doing is they have put out grants to their small businesses to help with payroll and a few other items to help keep the small businesses open and operating. One of the question I asked in the email I sent everybody on Friday was, is there a desire to use that, I would say $50,000. I want to go all the way up to our cap just to give us a little bit of a cushion, but would it be permissible or advisable to use $50,000 and have some of our small businesses apply for to us and say, hey, I could use a grant of $1,000 or $2,000 to help with payroll or some of the loss that we have seen through COVID. And so I wanted to take that back out to the council and say, what are your thoughts on that? And if we could do an action item, because unfortunately, this is a time-sensitive thing. We have to have that put in by mid-November if we're going to do something along that line.
Madam Mayor, just a quick question for Sam or James. What are the limitations of what we can use this money for?
I can forward you the entire sheet. The one that I sent to you in an email, the section I was talking about that would work. It's the subcategory under small business, and there was a subcategory of small business interruption grants, payroll support grants. There are medical needs. If we had employees we laid off, we could apply for those. Any of the equipment we put in, for instance, the camera, the new server, the switches we had to do remote.
No, I hear you there, but I mean, what's the broad range of what we can use it on? In so much as, one of the big issues that we're going to be dealing with as a community is going to be all the folks who are going to be getting evicted once the moratorium is over. And, I would think that there would be worth exploration looking at some of this because, landlords are essentially small businesses, and there is a huge issue that's on the loom here with this. I'm just curious, and this is just hypothetical, mind you, if you could use that money instead of giving it to businesses, which already had the Paycheck Protection Plan and a number of other federal aid and assistance, more directly benefit the members of the community directly. And so that's why I'd be curious to see if James might be willing to look into this, or you, or both of you, so we can find out the full criteria of how we can use this money, because you're right, the clock is ticking on us.
Right.
And we need to move, obviously, utilize this to benefit the community, but it'd be great to see what our maximum flexibility is here.
Right, and I can definitely look into that. There was a category under, I didn't see anything regarding like rent. There was a category under utilities where we could help pay for some utilities if needed. But I didn't see anything that was.
No, I appreciate that though, because I just think we need to know what all of our options are so we can best utilize this for the maximum benefit of the community. But no, I appreciate your work here. We'll work on this. Just trying to see what our options are.
Right, and yeah, I don't know if that would fall into a category. I can definitely get what the options are, the criteria for each fund, and I can send that out.
Oh no, I think that'd be I can just speak for myself. I find that very helpful.
Excuse me. So your idea is not to give it to the businesses, but the citizens of Coquille.
Kathy, if you're talking, we can barely hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Very cool. Is that a little better?
That's much better, thank you.
Okay. So Councilor Rao, you're saying that instead of giving it to the businesses, you would like to see what we could do to help the individual citizens to recover from this pandemic. Is that what I'm understanding?
What I said was that I'd like to see what all of our options are before we run off half-cocked. And
No, I'm sorry. I think it's a very good idea what you brought up. I would like to help the citizens if we could do that, like electricity or water or food, gift cards or something along those lines.
Well, Sam says he's going to look into it, and so I'm excited to see what he comes up with. But thank you, Kathy.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for bringing that up, Matt.
So that would actually mean I'd have to get that back out to you by really soon, and we'd have to get another meeting together before November, before mid-November, so we can get it back out to the citizens, so that we can get it, so we can be reimbursed. Because ultimately, what it is we would pay for it out of one of our funds, and then ask for that reimbursement from the state.
Well, it sounds like we may have an election eve meeting, huh?
We might have an election eve meeting. Yeah.
Excuse me one more time, Sam or James, could we not just get a consensus from the council via email, since we need to proceed with this quite quickly?
No.
You would have to have a meeting, an in-person meeting again?
There is no such thing as any sort of legal action as the consensus through email. The council can take action only in a duly noticed public meeting.
Okay, perfect.
That doesn't mean we can't do a special meeting after we get all of our information together. We can do a special meeting at any given point. We just have to go through the process.
No problem. Thank you.
And then one more item, I've been talking with the Downtown Association, Coquille Downtown Connections. They're putting together a pumpkin decorating contest for Main Street, First Street. They're trying to get all the businesses up and down First Street to carve a pumpkin, put it in there, and we're going to judge those on Halloween day. And so just something a little fun to put out there and say, hey, downtown's still open, and we're going to be there. We may not be doing a whole big trick-or-treating through the businesses, but businesses still provide candy, and you may see some people stop in.
One thing I was going to say is if anybody needs a ringer pumpkin carver, Councilor Weiderbach, as I have seen this firsthand, the master pumpkin carvers. So just give a little shout out to Kyle there. I saw one of his creations online last night, and it was very impressive.
That was amazing. Okay, does anyone else have anything for Mr. Ba?
Mayor, I have a question for the city manager.
Yes.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for putting the URA in there, the little comment that they came in and stated there. I like to see that. If you have people come in, they get URA funds, they get approved, do they ever come in, do they use it, do they not? I don't know. I like that, thank you. And then also, how long have the city been holding out UTA tax on payroll? Is that something that just was happening and they just found it?
That's been happening since we went with ADP, and we didn't realize it until Marina and company had said, hey, why are you guys holding this out? And so we're yes, trying to get that back from with ADP.
Okay.
So it hasn't been.
It's not been 3 years.
Not to my knowledge, no. I think it was found while we were doing some ADP reconciliation.
Sam, I have one last question for you, and I'm not picking on you. This is a legitimate question because I had it from several constituents. Why is it that we are not allowing the public in here? We're in phase 2. We were allowing them back in at the last meeting. I know it's very difficult for a lot of people to do public comment. I know it's difficult for staff to scan the public comments on Facebook in particular. That's why I appreciate you putting the email down there. I think that's a better direct way if we've got to do it this way. But what was the reason for not inviting the public if they were socially distanced out and so forth?
Well, I mean, you're looking at it right here. We don't even have all of our counselors, and we're still struggling to get social distancing. If we would have had, even all of our counselors and even 3 or 4 more individuals show up, we would have been out of social distancing room.
No, that is a very fair point. Then
And who do I say yes, you can come in?
No, I think that's why again we might want to explore until the pandemic's over, looking at the community building like we did with the budget hearing, to allow the people to be involved. Because I know there were several people who contacted me who were not upset with anybody. They wanted to come and participate. And I mean, we expect to be able to be accountable to people, and they're watching and they're participating as best they can. But some folks maybe aren't the most tech savvy, so I'm not criticizing you. It's just maybe the council should explore using a larger room so we can do the social distancing and allow for more public participation.
And I will say, I can look into that, but I think we really ran into real sound problems at the community building, even worse than what we have here.
Well, that is a very fair point too.
And recording and doing all of that,
Yeah, but I mean, for those that don't, I got somebody that said, hey, I don't have a Facebook account. I have created a city YouTube account. Unfortunately, we can't stream live to YouTube just yet. We have to have 100 likes or subscriptions or whatever that is. So everybody that's listening, please go to find the City of Coquille YouTube channel, and then you can say subscribe. And if we get up to 100, then we can go do live broadcasts straight onto YouTube. But right now I'm taking it as soon as it's available off of Zoom and I'm posting it straight onto YouTube. And so we're not getting a live effect off of that, but we are making it possible for the public to see everything we're doing.
Well, thank you, Sam.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I have one more thing to add.
Sure.
Sam, it looks like we are running into that 1-year contract with you come next month, and I'm seeing something about you've already sold your house in Coos Bay and troubling to find houses now.
Correct. I'm glad you hit on that because I had that I was going to talk about, and my mind wanders and stuff. We are nearing a year. I mean, November 19th is a year from the time I started. We had until January of 2021 for me and my family to live within city limits according to the contract. I will tell you, I have done everything possible to fulfill that part of the contract. I sold my house because we had put an offer on a house here. Our house sold, the house we put an offer here, it fell through. I've identified a couple other pieces of property, but I had 2 other houses that we were in the process of putting a bid in, and we got word back that no, they've already accepted another offer. I had a piece of property we were looking at purchasing to build on. My question to the council is can I amend the contract to say, the Coquille area instead of within city limits, because I really have put a lot of effort into trying to stay within city limits, and it's just not working.
Like rural Coquille. Rural Coquille. Sam?
Wait, I can't hear you,
Saying
Kathy.
rural.
I'm sorry, rural Coquille. is
Rural
what-
Coquille. What does that? I mean, unfortunately, I want a definition of that. Is that the Coquille zip code, which, you know, goes all the way out to Riverton and all the way up to Laverne Park, which, you know, so I'm hoping that rural means, yes, within 5-10 minute driving range type stuff. But I just want to be as open and honest with you guys as possible.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, Sam, is to kind of get that out on the table now to give us a little bit to think about this before our next meeting to, you know, just think about that and give our input on that. Unless you need that answer kind of as of
You know
now.
what, I don't necessarily need it now. There are houses that pop on every day that, you know, my realtor took me to look at one. It was actually on Highway 101. It was just before the 42 split. And I'm like, you know, that's a little bit farther out than I want to be, and I think they'll accept. But, you know, it was a gorgeous house, don't get me wrong. It was absolutely beautiful. But to me, that felt a little too far out. Green Acres to me is probably pretty close to the limit of as far away as I would feel comfortable being. There was a house in Myrtle Point my wife kind of liked, but, you know, it's Myrtle Point. So that's definitely not rural Coquille.
And again, we can talk about this more when we have that on the agenda, but generally the definition, at least for easy boundaries for rural Coquille, would be anywhere in the Coquille School District, which would be Toledo would be the distant point, and then Four Corners out in, actually it's further up past that building. But so it comes with easy definable boundaries though, because the political boundaries also, which is the rural Coquille political precinct. And that might make it easier as far as drawing something up your contract.
Okay.
Because then you have ready set boundaries already there.
Okay. That helps a lot. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
while we're on this topic, I'd just like to remind the council, Sam's contract also calls for an evaluation of his job performance annually on or before the anniversary date of his employment. So that will need to be on the agenda at some point in November. So just a heads up on that for all of you to give that some thought. There's nothing in the contract, and I don't think there's been any discussion about how that should take place. I don't know how Coquille has done that in the past, but that is coming up at the same time as his contract renewal.
James, I was going to mail you some information on how we did it in the past with some samples of how we did the interviews on the previous city managers' reviews.
Sure, I'd be happy to look at that.
Anything else, counselors? Okay, I'll move on to the consent calendar. Jennifer, would you please give us an update?
Okay, so you have September 21st minutes in front of you. I added the URA to this because there was no URA meeting tonight. You guys can, or Julie can decide if we're going to leave it off of there and wait for the URA meeting, or just go ahead and approve the whole thing tonight. I don't think there was anything else.
I'm a little confused there, Jennifer. Mine says Urban Renewal Agency meeting September 21st. You said you left it off of the consent calendar?
No, I said I added it to it. I added the minutes.
Yes, oh, I see. I see, instead of doing a separate one.
Yes, because we didn't have a URA meeting tonight. So to keep them in line, get them approved tonight. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
I'm okay with that if the counselors are okay with that.
Okay.
So do I have a motion to accept the consent calendar? Did you not hear me?
Oh, just a sec. There you go.
Try that again.
Do I have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
I'll move to accept the consent calendar dated September 21st.
I second that.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
Agenda number 8. Mayor and council agreement to donate our 2009 Ford Crown Victoria Patrol Car to the South Coast Law Enforcement Museum.
I can talk on that.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, thank you, Chief.
so with our recent purchase of our latest Dodge Charger that we got just this July, and Officer Rowe is now driving, that left us with the car that we would need to surplus, and it's a 2009 Ford Crown Vic. We don't know the exact mileage. It's approximately around 150. The odometer on it, on a lot of those Crown Vics, quit working. So, and it's expensive to repair that, so we just didn't do it. It needs a couple other little repairs. I think the shop that does the work for us estimated that at like another $600 or something. It's just going to be a car that we no longer need. So with that, I've talked to Gerwin Bogg. He's here to talk to you tonight. He has some items on the table for display that he's been putting together for his museum in Bandon. He's a retired police officer. He'll give you his information, but basically we have a good looking patrol car that's ready to be retired, but it's still cosmetically, it looks pretty good. It still runs and drives. It needs some work, but it's for museum purpose, it would be perfect. And it's still a good looking car. It's got our latest graphics on it. It's a black and white, which is classic for the time frame that those cars serve. It's a Ford Crown Vic, which is no longer in service. You can't get those anymore. It's basically got, you know, all of our equipment in it, like cage and hard seat and stuff like that, console. None of that equipment will go into the new cars, just because it's Ford Crown Vic specific, so it's not like we can reuse any of that old equipment. So I've talked to Derwin Boggs in the past about he's always looking to collect anything that agencies might have that they don't need anymore, that's older, that would be that we might work for his museum. So when we had this vehicle, we generally get about, I would have to put numerous man hours into that vehicle just to strip all the equipment out of it so you can sell it to the public. And once we do that, if it's a running, driving, working vehicle, we generally get around $500 for them. But in this case, if we donated it to the museum, we would leave all the equipment in it. We would leave the Coquille graphics on it. It would be a center showpiece in their floor. So that was just an ideal that I had. It wasn't that Derwin Boggs approached me and asked me to give him a car. It was an ideal that I had. I called it. Derwin asked him, "Hey, is this something you'd be interested in if I run it by the council and see what you guys say?" So with that, that was my thinking. It was my ideal. I'll let Derwin come up and sort of tell you about himself and what he would like to do, and he would love to have that thing a centerpiece in the floor of his museum. Derwin?
Yeah, just sit right there. Yeah, just sit there as long as you can talk loud.
Again, I'm Derwin Boggs, and I've lived in Coos County most of my life, all my life. I currently live in Curry County. I'm a unit forester for the Coos Forest Protective Association. I've been with them for 30 years, but I've been in law enforcement since I was 16 also. I started collecting in 1981 accidentally. And as I grew a little older, I started collecting more stuff. So I have about 600 police badges in my collection, probably 300 police uniforms. Did all of you have a chance to look at the stuff back here on the table? If you don't have a chance, there's some local Coos County stuff here that's really old and of interest to you. I have, this is about 0.5% of the stuff that I actually own that is currently on display in my house. And yes, I do live alone. I don't even have a dog. So there's not a lot of room in my house anymore. And I'm getting ready to retire. I want to retire soon and move back to Bandon. And my parents recently passed away, so I have a building at my parents' house. It's 60 by 90. I've done some work to that. I'm preparing to make it into a museum. It's going to cost me a little bit of money. So I'm looking at maybe a year and a half out, but by the time I get it open. But when the chief told me about the car, I was really excited. It's the biggest thing I'd have in my museum, and that will probably lead to getting more vehicles. But it's an expensive hobby. I spent over $1,000 the other day on 2 police badges that are turn of the century, but they're going away, and the people that wore them anymore are gone. And it's historical stuff that we're not ever going to see again. One of the badges back here belonged to Bill Dad Howell, if anybody knew him or heard of him. I looked for that badge for 25 years. So I'm a pretty serious collector, and I've been serious about what I do. And I don't sell stuff. I sell doubles of stuff to put back into my museum. It's a nonprofit. I'm not in the profit of making money off what I do. I spend a lot of my own money, and I'm broke at times trying to get these badges surrendered and in my possession to open a museum. So I hope that someday you guys can come and look at it. But have any questions for me?
Darwin, can you talk about your law enforcement? You say you started at 16. Where all did you work?
I started at Coos Bay Police Department when I was 16 years old as a police explorer. And then I moved from there to the Coos County Sheriff's Office as a cadet until I was around, getting older, so I think I was around 19, I think. And then I went to work at the Murray Point Police Department in 1987, 88. I was there when John Curry got killed. Then I left there, and shortly after that, went to the city of Waterford, and I was there for a time while I arrested the city manager's daughter. And then I left. And then I went to City of Bandon Police Department. I was there about 8, 9 years. I got a new chief, and I went somewhere else. I went to the city of Fort Orford, and I was there for a total of about 9 years. Recently, out of the city of Gold Beach Police Department as a reserve officer, decided that I'm getting too old for that, and I didn't have time for it, so I don't do that anymore. So I'm out of the business, but I'm still working full time. I got almost 31 years at CFPA, and I want to retire. So this is my project.
So just to double check, Chief, because I know the biggest question people are going to have is, you could have sold that and made more money than it's worth. You said earlier, the man-hour time it takes to strip the vehicle is more than what we would probably get on this. So actually, we're going to come out of this probably in some ways revenue positive, correct?
Not technically. Usually, I spend my own time on strip them. Our reserve sergeant Dennis Hyatt helps me. So I don't necessarily pay a shop to take all the equipment out of them. Same as myself and Dennis upfit our cars. We put them together. We do it after hours in his shop. So in the evenings, you might see us over there at Coquille Automotive working on a police car. So technically, I'm on salary. So what I do at night working on cars doesn't cost the city anything. And Dennis Hyatt is a reserve officer. We don't pay him. He does it, lets us use his shop. He helps me do it. And he doesn't charge us. Obviously, when we have mechanical issues that we got to get a car back up and going, he's usually the guy in his shop usually does that work, and we pay those bills to keep our current cars going. But when it comes to updating cars or dismantling them, usually Dennis and I do it in off hours. And so it technically doesn't, but it does take us hours to do that. And so, technically it wouldn't cost the city anything because him and I would probably just do it. But if we had to pay someone, yes, it would cost as much as we get in the car.
But it's stuff, you could be doing other stuff with that time, I'm supposing. I suppose there are other things you could be doing.
Yeah, my wife would probably like to see me.
A quick question for James. Don't we need a resolution to surplus an item before we can donate it like this?
So there actually are no specific restrictions on how cities deal with surplus property in Oregon, and there seem to be no specific Coquille ordinances or past resolutions dictating a specific procedure. I'm not surprised that in the past that's the way you have done it. That's a perfectly good way to proceed to make a determination that property is surplus before getting rid of it. That is a requirement for a lot of other types of governments in Oregon, including the state itself, when it has to make a formal determination that property is surplus before disposing of it. But that actually does not apply to cities. So you are free to make your own decision about how to deal with an item of surplus property.
All right, thank you, James.
Chief, what would the equipment value be of that surplus? The equipment in the vehicle.
To a collector, maybe someone like Derwin, who was, trying to put together an old police car and was looking for old equipment. It might be a little value. A used console cage, I'd see, maybe $100 or something. If you had someone that, you gotta have a buyer. So, and if someone had this Crown Vic that they were just determined they're going to restore back to a police car, who knows what they paid to get some, old proper equipment, but I would guess $100 to $200. Well, we have a whole basement full. If you know someone that wants some old Crown Vics, I can totally fix them up.
So Sam, how do we go about surplusing this out?
So according to James, we just have to say, do you want to do this or not? I mean, because normally what we've been doing with the other surplus is we're on the state surplus,
right,
and we can just put it on there. They take care of all the notifications and all that other fun stuff for us.
I don't have a real issue with this. I mean, in the aspect of, I think it's a very, very good public relations thing to start what you're doing there with law enforcement. And I think it would be really in the eyes good, very positive in the eyes of the public, especially with the advent of the way people perceive law enforcement. And I don't have any issue with it. I think it's great.
And honestly, I mean, we've had, is it this one that we've had for sale for several months?
This car, no.
It was another one.
We have sold cars in the past, and what we have to do is we have to advertise it in the paper, which usually costs us like $150 just to advertise it. That's why I recently started this public surplus. They don't charge us anything. They charge the buyer a 10% premium when they sell something, so the buyer has to pay that on top of what they agreed to pay at auction. And we've sold some radios and we've sold some other stuff, and we now have our old repeater on there. And I didn't ask the council's permission to surplus that. I think we're okay to just surplus it. It's smaller equipment. It's just something that I've always done in the past, is ask the council if I could surplus these vehicles. I don't know if it's something that I have to do, but it's something I've always done. When I started here, I needed to get rid of some vehicles. I was told I had to run it by the council, so you guys okayed it for us to surplus those. You always give me permission to do that, and then we just take whatever someone offers us for them. In this case, I want to get rid of this vehicle, and instead of surplusing it, I'm asking if we can donate it, and I would like to see it donated and transfer the title to Derwin or his museum, so that we have no liability on it. I know some museums have items that are donated on basis that it's on loan or maybe on permanent loan. I'm not really looking to do that. I sort of want to get rid of it. I want to make it Fairway's vehicle, but it'll still be in his museum with our logo and everything on it. I think it'll look pretty nice.
Now, Dave, was that enthusiasm, is that to translate to a motion of any kind?
I would like to make a motion that we go ahead and transfer the vehicle over to Mr. Bach's museum. Now, you're a 501c3.
Not yet. I have attorney. Sorry, very expensive. Working on doing that now. I've also applied for a firearm license, so I can own some weapons for the museum also.
I make a motion that we go ahead and transfer the vehicle over. The Ford Crown Victoria, currently owned by the Coquille Police Department to Durban Box Museum.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
I have to run, so I'm making Mr. Dwight put this away, so.
Agenda number 9, K9 patrol car.
Okay.
Sam or Chief? Which
I'm on this one, and I to discuss this. This is part of the Kennard Trust that we were given the funds for in July. As part of our budget committee, we had talked about, just using that. The only reason this can be used is for funding of the K9 patrol unit. We had the opportunity to purchase a 2017 Tahoe from the Kansas Police Department, Kansas Highway Patrol. And this was something we had to act on quickly, unfortunately. It was about half the price of everything else we'd been looking at. With that being said, I gave the permission for him to purchase that vehicle for $29,500. My understanding was that when we had given that original amount of money, that a vehicle just fell into that. And I was talking to James after I gave Chief the approval, and he said, we should probably run that past the council. I said, oops, we already wrote the check. And so I'm coming to the council and begging forgiveness to say, we purchased a K9 vehicle, and now I need permission to pay for it. And so that's what we're
You're looking for the term that Lincoln referred to as retroactive ratification.
retroactive ratification. Yep. We have a couple of those coming on.
How much money do we have in the this?
Well, of the $310,000, we've so far spent $29,000 plus just a few other. I mean, we're still right around the 300, about 275 range.
That's what I want to
hear. Yeah. So yeah, we were still over 300 when we wrote the check on this.
So do I hear a motion to okay this retroactive purchase?
I make a motion that we okay this retroactive purchase of the K9 vehicle for $29,500.
Okay, Dave. Second? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Yes, discussion. Going forward, Mr. Baugh, next time we have one of these opportunities to make this type of a purchase, what are you going to do to prevent from council not receiving the knowledge they need to help you get this purchase? Or how can we eliminate this from ratifying in the future?
This will come before the council in the future. I don't foresee us having to, this is probably the biggest purchase we are going to have to make for the K9 unit. The next one will be the purchase of the dog itself. And so when we arrive on getting the dog, I mean, that's the whole purpose of this thing. But I will bring that to the council and say, hey, this is the kind of animal we have chosen. And this is when they're available. Usually we don't have very much time because they go pretty quickly when they're.
My apologies on the clarification of what I meant was, this was a time-sensitive issue. Is there any way we can prevent this in any form of your financial or choices for the city to get us the information, to run it by us before this proceeds in any of those situations?
So are you saying in as far as the rest of the city in general, or just this?
Right.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, the rest of the, if this would have been a purchase for anything else besides just the canine fund, I would have said, let's take that in front of the council, let's do this. But I was under the impression that everything that was run by that for the canine fund was already allocated, and therefore we could use that. So that this was an anomaly.
Sam, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so in this case, since you said regarding the dog, the sales go down pretty quickly, you could just call a special meeting.
We could.
Yeah, and then you could get the approval and make the purchase.
I mean, honestly, we should know a little bit in advance of how much and when it would be available. Is that correct, Chief?
Sam and James, would it be okay if, I know roughly what the cost of a canine dog is going to be. It's going to be about anywhere from $12,500 to $15,000. So with that, I know a pretty close range. We've already been talking to some brokers that sell these dogs and some handlers that also sell them, and that's the price range, $12,500 to $15,000. Would it be appropriate to have an agenda item requesting a certain dollar amount for a dog, and then if it doesn't end up costing that much, then we're still okay if we stay under that dollar amount? If that's something, we're going to be looking at this, we're thinking by the first of the year, so maybe it's something I need to bring to the next council asking, hey, a dog could cost us upwards of $15,000. Maybe put a little bit of a buffer on that and call it $16,000. And then if we get the opportunity to purchase a dog, we've got the permission. And if the dog only costs $12,500, we're well within our budget. Is that something I could do?
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I think that's the perfect way to address situations like these where an upcoming expense or purchase is anticipated, but you don't know in advance what the hard cost is going to be. To do an advance approval of a not to exceed amount. If the unfortunate circumstance arises that the perfect dog comes around and it's above that pre-approved amount, then you can do a real quick special meeting and deal with it that way. Another question that's kind of out there that Sam could probably use some clarification on, and myself as well, is for, Sam has a discretionary spending authority and he has other purchases that come to the council. For items that are specifically budgeted in the annual budget, I'm wondering if, and contemplated as purchases for that year, I'm wondering if it's the council's expectation that Sam bring those back to the council again when that purchase is ready to be made, or if he should take the fact that something has been specifically itemized and approved in the budget as authority to go ahead and complete that transaction and just let you know when it's been completed.
Well, the Kennard Trust is in our current budget. So the money has really already been allocated to be spent on the dog and its needs.
Well, I think there's a difference between a general allocation in the budget towards the canine program versus a line item that breaks it out, for example, vehicle and dog and so forth. And I think in the Kennard Trust case, we didn't, but there are other places in the budget, for example, new patrol car, I believe, as an example, I don't remember if that was this year or last year, is something that does get broken out as a line item in the budget. And normally I would expect that if it's broken out to that degree of specificity, then that's basically authorization to go ahead and do that, and it doesn't need to come back to the council. But I throw that out just as another aspect of the continuing working relationship between the city manager and the council, and wanting everyone to be on the same page about those things.
Okay, thank you, James. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote.
Do we,
I'm sorry.
do we know what the Canard Trust actually does?
I'm sorry, I can't hear Dave.
Oh,
You have to talk to them.
I'm sorry, Kathy. Do we know what the Canard Trust actually does cover?
Anything related to the K-9 unit.
And that includes even the officer's training?
Officer training, overtime,
That's all I want to know.
yeah,
That's all I want
food and care.
to
Yes.
know. That's all.
Okay, so I'll call for the vote now. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Agenda number 10, Resolution 10-2020, a resolution authorizing the city manager and support service director to enter negotiations, prepare applications, enter into agreements, and file reports on behalf of the city of Coquille on projects council has given authority to.
So what this is this is to give both myself as well as Chair Lynn the ability to basically put Chair Lynn onto the bank account is what this says. Give her access to the credit card, all the financial stuff. When we're talking about negotiation on behalf of the city to prepare applications, that's going for grants. Basically, we're trying to put this resolution so that every time I don't have to come back here and say I need Chair Lynn put onto the bank account. I need Chair Lynn put onto the Fidelity investment account. I need Chair Lynn put onto the EON account. I need Chair Lynn put onto. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. She's telling me that's number 13.
This one was just,
Oh.
yeah, this
I'm talking
one,
about the wrong one.
yeah.
I apologize.
This one was just for like all the ratifications that we did this time, and just, there were a few examples in there about the real estate and other things.
One suggestion, for reading the resolution, the title is a little bit off on the end. It should probably just, the ending last word should say, projects council has approved.
Has approved.
Or, because has given authority to, and I had a quick question for James on the third whereas. This is an important section, obviously, because it says that these negotiations cannot, that these are being done after being approved by the council. It says, whereas the council having previously approved the projects or when an emergency occurs, I'm sure you as an attorney know far better than me. Ambiguous language can be a little scary. And the term when an emergency occurs, I was wondering if it might be better to say when an emergency has been declared by the council.
So I think there's two different, there's state of emergency type emergencies where the city may be taking unusual actions to deal with a state of emergency condition. There's other sorts of emergencies that are one-time events, and I think when you have a sewer line or a drain line break under the highway, that has to be dealt with immediately. And I think it's probably the latter sort of emergency that the city manager had more in mind here. Emergency spending is another one where there's not a lot of guidance for the city, and again, I don't know past practice. For those sorts of emergencies, some government bodies do ask for a city manager to do a retroactive approval of a state of emergency if the director takes emergency action. So there's no clear answer here because I'm not quite sure how broad this needs to be or what Sam had in mind.
What is your opinion of the resolution, James?
I think the resolution is acceptable. I think how much latitude you want to give the city manager is a management question for the council.
And James, this was a resolution that Chuck was added to about 4 years ago.
Aha. Okay, so this has been in place for prior city managers.
Yes.
When did we adopt that, Jennifer? Because I don't recall it. It must have happened when I was on.
Yeah,
the
I don't
council.
recall.
It was something that I'm gonna have to look into it.
I'm
but
not
it
picking
was-
on you. I'm not picking on you.
No, I know, but it was something that the finance director and the finance director and the city manager both needed this passed because they were entering into negotiations with something that council had given them like direction to enter into negotiations. But when they went to the company to move forward, they said, oh, well, you need a resolution stating that the council has allowed you to continue to do this, kind
A
of
lot
like.
of the times, yeah, they're legally.
Like,
required to
yeah.
take the minutes showing that.
Right, yeah, so,
I see what you're saying. I have concerns about the ambiguity of the language. I'm confident this will probably pass regardless of how I vote, but it's just.
Which one, which
Well-
part are you?
Essentially,
No, which ambiguity are you have?
about the definition of emergency, and essentially, because the city manager already has $10,000 spending authority for emergency.
Right.
So essentially, this would be giving, this is about you, it's about the next city manager, the next city manager. Essentially, I fear it could create a precedent for a blank check.
well, no, what I had in mind was like Justin, the wildfires.
Right.
Like that, I mean, you guys can't approve that ahead of time.
I
So
understand.
that was kind of the,
No, I feel for you, I hear
direction.
where you're coming from, but what we have in mind isn't what this says. As James pointed out, there's ambiguity here to the point where it's a question of delegated authority, and I don't know if this is.
Well, and that's why staff recommendation down there says as is or with any changes the council would like to make
Well, I'm
as
not
far as
criticizing,
wording
I'm not
or adding
criticizing.
a monetary value.
So, the existing policies where there's an emergency, I mean, we dealt with this when I was mayor. If there's an emergency, it's pretty much unavoidable. The city manager notifies the council, and then we decide we're gonna retroactively ratify it like we did tonight. This is, I'm just personally uncomfortable with it, but I can understand why somebody vote for it. I'm generally very in favor of maximum flexibility for staff, but this would be really in my opinion, an abdication of our responsibility on the council. And so.
If we rewrote this to better.
I think we could address this better in the policy manual as far as emergency situations and retroactive ratification. I think we need to develop a policy. This would be my preference, obviously. But I do not, I mean, we talk about this at school board all the time with Superintendent Sweeney. It's like, we love Superintendent Sweeney, but do we want to give him that kind of blank check authority? Because the next one will expect that kind of authority. And so, again, I'm not criticizing city staff work. I'm not criticizing any staff member. I have concerns with the language, that's all. And maybe a policy would be a better way to address it.
That's what I'm saying, is you'd rather have a policy versus the resolution?
Well, again, it's a question of really how we phrase it. And again, I think we clearly define what an emergency is a lot more in the writing. And again, that's not trying to be nitpicky. I think we need narrow parameters on these kind of things, or you really risk things getting out of hand.
So Councillor Rao, I'd like to say something that I agree with you. I felt uncomfortable in reading this because of the language. My suggestion to council would be that we table this and have Sam and James work out a little different wording on this, a little more clarification, because I feel we're just giving them an open checkbook. And I don't feel comfortable with it as it's written.
Would you write an empty check?
And I'm okay with that.
I do agree with you, Matt. I'm sorry, Kathy, I thought.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Go
Okay,
on.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I agree with you, Matt, that I believe that this would be, it would serve the better good, for lack of a better term, if this was in a policy. And if it was rewritten to not have such of a broad stroke, broad brush.
Well, no, and again, I probably shouldn't have said policy because we set policy by resolution all the time.
Right.
But we need I'd like a more narrow definition of an emergency and what the process would be for the retroactive ratification. I'd really like James to sort of sink his teeth into this a little bit, so
I don't have any issue with that.
Yeah, so, no, I think the mayor makes a wise point.
Yeah.
And so I'll move that we table this agenda item until we can get further legal review on this. And I'll second that.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor now. Do I have a second?
Hugh seconded it.
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. So we'll call, do we discussion, any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor of tabling?
Hold on a second, Kathy.
I just want to mention, are we talking about just the second resolution?
No, we're talking about the
or-
first one. It wasn't put money in accounts. We're gonna.
Number 10.
We're just talking
That's all I
about.
was trying
No, that should be
to clarify. Otherwise,
saved.
I can't work.
No, trust me, we don't wanna hobble you coming in.
Okay.
Okay, so we're calling for the vote to table this agenda item. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries to table this. Thank you, Counselor.
All right.
Agenda number 11.
All right, so number 10 was to help mitigate what we're coming up with on agenda number 11 and 12. Highway 42, we had a sewer line burst. It had been a problem in the past, but it was spilling raw sewage into the river. It was undercutting Highway 42. We may have had a road collapse if we hadn't have done something. And so Haley called and said, what do we need to do? We need to get this done. And I said, we need to fix this before, because it was a Friday, I believe, Haley? Haley, you're on here.
Haley?
Yeah, it was, I think it was went sometime towards the end of the week. Yeah.
And so we were really running out of time. And so we said, we need to fix this before the weekend, because if we come back on Monday, we may not have Highway 42, which would be bad. And so I gave Haley the approval to fix this. And Haley, you want to tell them about your solution and how it actually was much better than what I was thinking?
Well, this was, we had a sewer main collapse under Highway 42 that connects the pipe between 42 and about where River's Edge RV Park is. And it has been an ongoing maintenance problem, but it had gotten to the point where it had spilled over into the culvert on the other side of the road that leads into River's Edge RV Park on this easternmost side. And that culvert connects to a drainage basin that then connects to the river. It's a really nasty situation. Anyway, we repaired the pipe is essentially what the project is. You burrow underneath Highway 42 and you blast through the pipe and push another pipe through the ground and connect it to the main, which is what we did.
At first, we were thinking we'd have to excavate into Highway 42, block traffic and everything else. And Haley said, hey, let's just pull this pipe through, and that worked. Great.
Well, our crew.
So Haley, may I ask a question, please? So does the county not help us with any of the funding repairs on 42?
It's not 42 that's the problem. It's our sewer line underneath.
It is exactly just our sewer
They're
line.
very, very helpful with their emergency process, though. So we talk with ODOT, with this guy, Jeff Waddington, who's in charge of our region, and he allows us to expedite the permits to do the work underneath the road. And so they're able to do their permit process in one day with an emergency like that, which is what they did for us.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I have another question. The cost that you're asking for is between 25 and 30,000.
It was 29,000 in the end. We got the invoice. I think it was 29,000 something. It right in under 30.
Well, this quote, oh, I'm sorry, wrong quote. Okay.
Oh, good.
We don't have a copy of the invoice or anything that was attached to this that told us exactly how much it was.
We just got it, so.
Okay. So it was about 29,000 something.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a full quote when we put this together. That's why I put that ballpark range.
No, it's okay. But we're just closer to the 30 than 25. So, okay, I have no further questions. Counselor?
Just a quick question on funding for Sam. Now, that section of the highway falls in the URA, and I know we've used the URA for street improvements and infrastructure in the URA. I wondered if we could, instead of using this from the I&I project reserve account, could we consider looking at it as a URA project?
Haley will answer this.
Oh, very good.
This is certainly an I&I project. That's what the money's for. This is right in the definition of that. And we have the money set aside in the budget for these kinds of projects. I would say, it's ultimately your decision, but this is right on the definition of what that kind of thing.
I understand that. It's just, we had a really nasty culvert washout on Henry back when I was mayor, and we had to dip into other funds for that I&I. So we built up the I&I fund in case of emergencies like this. And so I don't want to see it, get depleted increasingly and then us have to dip into other funds. And so that's why anytime I see a project in URA, I often think, can we use URA on this? And so that's why I was floating it. I completely understand it as a legitimate I&I project. It's just, we're these culverts, these things are finicky, and this stuff is expensive. And so I was just trying to find a way to get you more money.
How much is in our I&I fund right now? I don't have a budget in front of me. How much do we have? Does anybody know?
I think it was 225,000.
Oh, okay, so this is nothing out of there.
Right.
I still move to approve.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Make a motion, we approve.
Okay, so we
I
have a
second
motion.
that.
Okay, all those, our discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Pardon? I'm
Matt,
sorry.
nay.
Okay, thank you. So motion passes. Thank you, councilors. Agenda number 12, emergency approval wildland supplies. Chief Barron?
So while we were out on the North Bank fire, the 350-acre fire, we found we were deficient in some equipment, some safety gear, and also some tools. I contacted Sam while I was out there and said, hey, we need to make a purchase. Do we need to go to council? Got his advice on it, and I believe you made the decision to send out an email to the council saying that we were going to make some purchases. The overall purchase was actually more than this, but most of it was broken down smaller, so we were able to just go ahead and get it done. But one part of it did go over $10,000 spending limit, which was $17,988 to Cascade Fire. That was primarily for the truck equipment, the hose and whatnot, to be able to match up with all the other units out there. This will actually supply us with enough wildland gear to staff the 4 apparatus that were out there. So we had 4 total apparatus out on that fire.
Well, no, forgive me for interrupting you, Justin, or Chief Barron, but I was going to say, this is the definition of an emergency that you need the retroactive ratification on. And this is the example of something like a wildfire we can put in there as a criteria in that resolution we look at, or something on Highway 42 with vital infrastructure, just to be a little bit more helpful on how to maybe draft that next resolution. But no, this is the definition of an emergency, I would call it. So, no, I move we approve the funding.
Okay, just a second, please. I have a question to Chief Barron. Is this replacing equipment that was used? Is this going back into your inventory, or is this equipment that you've already used that we have to pay for?
This is equipment that we needed while we were out there that we did not have.
Okay, so we don't have any backup. So should we have another fire, what happens? You do not have this equipment, right?
So this equipment will go on each truck. It's reusable. I'm going to try to get.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. So we do keep this equipment
Yes.
for the next fire.
There is, some of the equipment that we purchased is expendable, such as the, fire shelters that we purchased. Those are more a one-time use. Hopefully we never have to use them. But if we do, they will have to be, purchased to restock. But that's a bad day if we're using them. They tend to have about a 10 to 15 year lifespan on them, the fire shelters themselves. Some of this hose, we're gonna have to purchase in the future again, but for right now, we should be pretty good on the wildland equipment.
Okay, and so this, you submitted a quote. Do we have an actual invoice?
So that is the actual invoice. That's the quote they gave me. I haven't gotten, actually, I think I coded this and sent it up to Jennifer or to finance to
Approve and
make
pay?
the payment on it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have a motion, right? Matt, you made a motion?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're doing great. We're moving along. Public participation. I didn't see anything on Facebook. Did anybody get anything?
Kathy, you've got resolution 11-2020, adding support service director as additional signer on the city.
I didn't get one in my.
I thought we had tabled that.
No,
Oh, no.
no, this is a different, I have
This
two
is a
copies.
different
I
one.
have 3 copies here, so I'm thinking somebody.
Those were my
did it.
extra ones. I was looking
I
all
didn't
over.
either. Yeah, that's why I was asking earlier.
Did you get
I got them.
Okay,
Okay, so I don't have a copy of that.
those must have been my extra copies, right? Do you have more?
That's,
that's it? Okay.
I had 2 extra copies.
Okay. So we have a resolution then.
This is agenda number 13, agenda
Okay.
item number 13.
No, this is just the
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Adding
understand.
support service direction. Okay, that's pretty simple, cut and dry. So do I have a motion to approve that, to add share to the bank accounts?
I make a motion that we go ahead and approve resolution 11-2020, adding support services director as the additional signer on the city Coquille finance account.
I second.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we'll go to public participation.
Okay, so I have one email here and then I have one on Facebook. The email was sent to Sam by a Jackie Meyer of the Coquille Garden Club. I'll just read it. The truck used by the Coquille Garden Club has serious maintenance issues that we are unable to remedy. We need a donation of one by next spring. Please bring this before council.
A donation of how much?
She doesn't say. That's exactly what it says.
Do we own the truck or do they own the truck?
We own the truck.
No, we don't. They own the truck. We signed it back to them. We only
Oh, we
had
did.
it for 1 year.
Okay, because our Operation Coquille gave it to us and then we signed it back to the garden club.
Right.
So they-
I couldn't remember.
So they have it for 1 year, is that right?
No, no, we had it for 1 year, Dave,
Oh,
while
yeah.
they were trying to.
That's
the-
right. Yeah, we
the
did.
The club had divided, and so there was an issue on who owned the truck. Coquille Valley Garden Club or Coquille Garden Club. So the city took the truck for 1 year. They own the truck now. We signed it back to them.
Well, they never had it in the first place.
But
So
we
it-
give them revenue shared money that's supposed to cover the maintenance of the truck.
This past budget cycle, they didn't even come in for revenue sharing money.
Oh, we
They did.
know they did come in and ask for it, but we decided to give it to them out of promotions, I believe, right, Matt?
Yes.
Rather than give it to them out of revenue shared.
I think we talked about approving it out of that, but I don't think we actually approved anything. They would need to come in and actually have a proposal.
Yeah, we
And then
didn't
we'll talk
approve
about it.
anything. Nope, at the budget meeting,
But
you
no,
guys, they
everything
were
that
gonna come
they
back.
asked for, the fund that could have been funded out of not the promotions fund, forgive me, the transient
Right.
lodging tax.
Right.
But the truck, obviously, I don't think that is fundable out of the transient lodging tax. And so it's gonna be
Well, you
something.
can't take it out of the transient lodging tax because they don't promote tourism.
Exactly, so
So it
no,
has
it's
to
gonna
come.
have to be something that I think, I would think that that's something, this is something we're gonna have to look at either as a special funding item or just in state shared revenue when we do next year's budget, would be my guess, Mayor.
Or I think they could come in with an invoice and tell us how much it would cost to bring the truck
Or
up.
we could just give them a blank check.
Oh, come on, Jennifer, be nice.
I'm just kidding.
Just because I oppose.
Are they looking to get the truck fixed or a new truck?
It looks like they want a new one. We need a donation to get a truck by spring. The maintenance issues, they are unable to remedy. So I'm assuming they just want us to give them money for a new truck, but obviously this is not how we do it, so.
Okay, so what is our standard operating procedure on how we do something?
For donations?
Yeah,
Well, it's state shared revenue.
okay.
Yeah, or they can come to council at any time and ask for, out of the promotion account, but not just an email and
Well, that was because
like-
she wasn't able to come in person. She
Right.
said that to me.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
part of the public participation.
Right, so we'll just, obviously more information and, I don't know, yeah.
I don't know, what's the rest of the council's idea?
I think they need to come before us with a dollar amount. We need to know what we're investing in.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a brand new truck, you could be looking at $20,000-$30,000 truck.
Hi, can folks hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. Sorry. The garden club folks are also part of the dog park folks, and they've talked to me about their need for a truck. So they may have felt like they'd already talked to the city because we chat about, well, they talked to me about their needs while at the dog
To
park.
come to council.
But their truck is damaged beyond repair. I don't know about automobiles, but they explained it. We've talked to the fire department about or Steve Dubasar has talked to someone about the F-150 that's sitting out in our shop parking lot. This is a longer conversation that we've had in addition to that email. So we know about their need. I don't know how those things are funded. I'm not really exactly sure what they do for the city, but we're talking to them. Maybe we'll have more information next time, but they're a great group.
Kathy?
No, I was going to say, I am a member of the garden club, and I had suggested to them to post some things like on, I don't know, some of those pages that they post on, and ask if someone would donate a truck that we could modify into the watering truck.
They
And
told
so,
me they just really needed just any old truck. They don't even really need anything special.
that was my understanding as well. So I suggest once again, we table this until we have more information.
We don't even have to take any action, it's just public comment.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, and the
All right.
other?
There's one more, sorry, we hit our 9 o'clock deadline, so do we vote to keep it for another few minutes? Okay, all right. Hope Grundy said, I saw the street sweeper that belongs to the city operating today. I was happy about this because the other one runs around 11 p.m. Does this mean our city will do this job from now on? I think we covered that a little bit earlier. We're working towards that, but Haley, do you want to grab that?
We hope so in the near future.
But was our old city street sweeper working? Did you clean the streets with it?
Jeff, well, our crew, I've cleaned 0 streets. The street sweeper is like a really bad vacuum. It's like a 1970s something street sweeper, and you have to go over the streets over and over and over with it. So it sort of works, but we have a long-term plan to get a new one.
Right. Okay, so that's her answer. We're gonna get a new one eventually. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
When's our next
Hearing-
meeting?
I'm sorry. Oh,
When is our next meeting?
the next meeting, is that the question?
Yes.
We have a workshop, Sam, coming up.
We have a scheduled meeting or scheduled workshop for November 2nd. We had some discussion earlier about maybe having a meeting on then. If we go and look at the Corona relief funds, we may have a special meeting before that. Other than that, our next council meeting is going to be November 16th. Sorry, I'm trying to do the math in my head. 16th.
As of right now, there's no guarantee we might have a COVID. Sure.
Sorry, I can't hear you, Hugh. What did he say?
Yeah, as of right now, since I'm still in the process of moving, see, I just need to get an idea of when I need to be here.
Right.
See, the glory of this, Hugh, is we have this thing, and if we have a special meeting, we'll let you call in. How's that?
Yeah. Okay, so hearing nothing else, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 9:07 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Was that just missed? Oh,
Yes, I know. Lauren used to always tell me that. The one